The lecture hall fell silent, not the comfortable quiet of students waiting for class to begin, but the suffocating hush that happens when something fundamentally wrong enters a space meant for normalcy. I watched from my position in the third row, my sensory stalks twitching with barely contained curiosity as every human head turned toward the door. This was my fifth rotation studying at the Terran Advanced Learning Institute, and I prided myself on understanding human behavior. But this was new. She stood in the doorway, approximately 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, standard university attire, worn backpack, slightly scuffed boots. Nothing remarkable, except for one small detail that made my secondary hearts skip a beat. Her right arm ended at the elbow. No prosthetic, no attempt to hide it. Just missing. And she had scars. Oh, by the 17 moons did she have scars. They traced up her neck, disappearing beneath her collar, reappearing at her jawline. Not neat surgical scars. These were jagged, angry things that spoke of violence and survival. "Is that her?" whispered Marcus, the human sitting next to me. His voice carried that mix of awe and terror that I was learning to recognize. "Is that really Emma Torres?" Torres. I filed the name away, my datapad forgotten as she walked, limped, toward an empty seat in the front row. Her gait was uneven but purposeful, each step deliberate. The silence followed her like a living thing. Professor Hendricks, a veteran educator who I had never seen rattled, actually fumbled his coffee cup. It clattered against his desk, the sound explosive in the quiet. "Miss Torres," he managed, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Welcome to Advanced Xenobiology. We are honored to have you." Honored? I exchanged glances with Marcus. What kind of student warranted honor before even speaking? Emma Torres settled into her seat without ceremony, pulling out a notebook with her single hand, a movement so practiced it looked effortless. When she finally looked up, scanning the room, I felt my breathing spiracles constrict. Her eyes were wrong, not in color or shape, but in what they contained. They were the eyes of someone much older than her apparent 20 standard years, eyes that had seen things that turned professors' hands to jelly. "Thank you, Professor," she said simply. Her voice was rough, like gravel being sorted. "Sorry I'm late. Morning ran long." Morning ran long. The casualness of it was almost offensive. Around me, human students shifted uncomfortably, and I realized they knew something I did not. This was killing me. I leaned toward Marcus again. "Who is she?" I hissed, keeping my voice below human hearing range. Or so I thought. Emma's head snapped toward me with predatory precision, one eyebrow raised. "New student?" she asked, addressing me directly. "Let me guess. Visiting scholar from Theta Centauri?" Yes," I stammered. "How did she know?" "I am Krelvox, studying human educational systems and, cultural integration patterns." A smile ghosted across her scarred face. It was not comforting. "Then you picked one hell of a semester to observe, Krelvox. Welcome to Earth." Professor Hendricks cleared his throat, eager to redirect attention. "Yes, well, let's begin. Today we are discussing the Harvex incident of 2187, the first documented case of hostile xenobiological contact with Earth. Now, most of you know the official reports, the sanitized versions that made it into your textbooks. But I think it's important to understand what really happened when those ships entered our atmosphere." He pulled up a holographic display, and I felt my stomach organs clench. The Harvex. Even on my homeworld, we knew about the Harvex. apex predators from the Andromeda sector, 7 feet of chitinous armor and savage intelligence. They had wiped out 12 civilizations before humanity even achieved spaceflight. The mathematics were simple and brutal. When the Harvex found a species, that species ended. Except humanity had not ended. The first wave hit at dawn, Hendricks continued, his voice taking on a lecturing cadence. Coastal cities, primarily. Seattle, Mumbai, Sydney. The creatures emerged from spore pods, hundreds per ship. They moved fast, adapted faster. Our military response was, to put it mildly, inadequate. I had read the reports, seen the casualty numbers. 30 million humans dead in the first 48 hours. Another 50 million in the following week. The Galactic Council had already begun preparing funeral notices for humanity's extinction. Standard protocol suggested evacuation and containment, Hendricks said, pulling up tactical maps. But humans, as you may have noticed, do not always follow standard protocol. Instead, volunteers began forming what they called Dawn Patrol units. Civilians, mostly. People who grabbed whatever they could carry and went hunting. Hunting. The Harvex. The word was so absurd I almost laughed. Until I noticed Emma Torres's expression had gone completely flat. "Miss Torres," Hendricks said gently, "would you like to share your perspective? I know this material is, well, personal." The classroom held its collective breath. Emma stared at the holographic Harvex displayed in front of us, rotating slowly in simulated menace. When she spoke, her voice had changed. Colder. Harder. "Personal is one word for it, Professor. I prefer educational." She stood, and I noticed several students lean back instinctively. Krelvox asked who I am. Fair question. I'm Emma Torres. I was 14 when the Harvex came, lived in a suburb outside Seattle with my mom, little brother, and our dog, a mutt named Soup. Stupid name for a dog, but my brother was 6 and thought it was hilarious. She moved to the front of the class, standing beside Hendricks. The professor stepped back, yielding the floor. This was clearly something that had been arranged beforehand. "Dawn came early that morning," Emma continued, "about 4:30. I woke up to Soup barking his head off, which was weird because Soup never barked. Lazy dog. Preferred sleeping to pretty much everything. But that morning, he was losing his mind, scratching at my door, whining." I watched her face carefully, noting the micro-expressions humans were so bad at controlling. Pain, anger, something that might have been pride. I opened my door, and Soup bolted downstairs. I followed him, annoyed, ready to put him in the backyard so everyone could sleep. Then I heard the screaming. Not human screaming. Different. Wet. Like air being forced through meat. Several students looked away. I could not. This was history happening before my sensory stalks. The living room window was gone. Just gone. And there was one of them. Professor's hologram there does not do them justice. Standing over my mom. She was trying to shield my brother, but the thing was fast. So fast. Its claws were already moving, and I did not think. I grabbed the baseball bat we kept by the door, Marcus's old aluminum one, and I swung. "Against a Harvex?" I heard myself ask, immediately regretting the interruption. "But the armor plating alone." "Yeah, the armor," Emma said, and that not-quite smile returned. "Thing is, Krelvox, when you are 14 and watching something try to kill your family, you do not really care about armor plating. You swing, and you keep swinging, and you figure out real quick where the weak spots are. Joints, eyes, the soft tissue under the mandibles." She paused, running her remaining hand through her hair. Soup helped. Brave, stupid dog. He went for its legs, biting, distracting it. Gave me time to get my mom and brother behind me. The Harvex, it turned on Soup, and I swung again. Caught it right in what I guess was its throat equivalent. It made this sound, like glass breaking underwater, and went down. The hologram rotated. I stared at the creature's specifications, regenerative capabilities, redundant organ systems. A single human child with a baseball bat should not have been able to kill one. Should not have, but clearly had. One down, Emma said softly. Then I heard more windows breaking. Upstairs, next door, everywhere. And I realized this was not just our house. This was everyone. The whole neighborhood. Maybe the whole city. "What did you do?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. Emma's expression hardened. "I told Mom to take my brother and run. Told her to get to the school, the big concrete building 2 blocks away. Figured it might hold. Then I picked up my bat, called Soup, and I went outside." The silence was absolute. There were 12 of them on our street. 12. I knew some of them would get past me, but I figured if I could slow them down, give the families time to run, maybe some kids would make it. Soup and I, we lasted about 4 minutes before one of them got smart, came at me from behind. Its claw took my arm clean off. Should have been the end. Would have been, except Mrs. Patterson from 3 doors down came out with her husband's hunting rifle. Emma looked at Hendricks. "You talk about Dawn Patrol units like they were organized. They were not at first. We were just people who decided dying on our feet beat dying in our beds. Mrs. Patterson could not shoot for crap, but she made noise, and noise brought more people. Mr. Kim with his axe. The Henderson twins with Molotov cocktails they made from their dad's liquor cabinet. Even old Mr. Ramirez, must have been 80, came out with a sword he claimed was from World War II. "A sword," I repeated faintly. "A sword," Emma confirmed. Turns out, when things are literally in your face, reach matters. We were a mess, bleeding, screaming, some of us dying. But we were fighting. And that is when I learned something about the Harvix that is not in any of your textbooks. They were not prepared for prey that fought back. Not like this. Not with randomness and rage and zero tactical sense. They had conquered 12 civilizations, smart ones, strategic ones, ones that retreated and regrouped and followed logical protocols. Her smile turned sharp. We did not retreat. We pushed forward. Mrs. Patterson took one down, then another. Mr. Kim's axe found weak points we did not even know existed. And Soup, ridiculous, wonderful Soup. He figured out that if he bit their rear legs at just the right angle, they fell. Just fell right over. I felt my learning processors struggling to integrate this information with known Harvex behavior patterns. It made no sense, except it had happened. I passed out from blood loss eventually, Emma continued. Woke up 3 days later in a field hospital, one arm lighter, scars everywhere, but alive. Know what the weird part was? I was not even special. Every hospital had stories like mine. Kids, grandparents, random people who just decided no. Those first 48 hours, before the military got organized, before we had proper weapons and tactics. That was all us, civilians with whatever we could grab. She returned to her seat, the lecture hall still silent. Professor Hendricks looked shaken, despite clearly having heard this before. The Harvex retreated after 6 days, he said quietly. First time in recorded history, they abandoned a planetary assault. The official explanation cited unexpected resistance and tactical adaptation. The real explanation? He gestured toward Emma. They met humans who decided to fight monsters at dawn, with baseball bats and family dogs. I looked at Emma Torres with new understanding. The scars, the missing arm, the eyes that had seen too much. She had not just survived the Harvex, she had fought them at 14 and lived to attend university classes. Questions? Hendricks asked the class. I raised a manipulator limb, my voice embarrassingly unsteady. Ms. Torres, if I may ask, why are you here? In this class, I mean. Surely after such trauma, studying the very creatures that— Because I want to understand them, Emma interrupted. Want to know how they think, how they hunt, what makes them tick. Because they are still out there, Krellvox. The Harvex do not give up easy. They will come back. Maybe not this year, maybe not next decade. But they will come back. And when they do? That terrible smile returned. I want to be ready. She pulled out her notebook again, pen poised. Now, Professor, you were saying something about their regenerative capabilities? Hendricks, visibly gathering himself, resumed the lecture. But I could not focus, could not stop staring at the young woman in the front row, casually taking notes about the creatures that had tried to kill her, that had killed so many, that had taken her arm and scarred her body, and apparently failed utterly to break her spirit. Around me, other students slowly relaxed, the tension bleeding from the room. But I remained alert, my mind racing. This was what the galaxy did not understand about humanity. We saw their fragility, their soft skin and single lifespan, their lack of natural weapons or armor, and we made assumptions. We forgot to account for the fact that sometimes fragility breeds ferocity. That afternoon, I found myself in the university cafeteria, still processing the morning's revelations. Marcus joined me, carrying what appeared to be enough food to feed a small battalion. Human eating habits remained a mystery I had yet to solve. You look shell-shocked, he observed, sitting across from me. First time hearing an actual Harvex survivor speak? First time hearing anyone speak about fighting them with primitive weapons and household pets, I admitted. Marcus, the statistical improbability alone. Statistics do not mean much when you are protecting your family, Marcus said through a mouthful of sandwich. That is what you are not getting, Krell. Emma's not an anomaly. She's just willing to talk about it. Half the older students here have similar stories. See that guy over there? The one with the cybernetic leg? He held off 3 Harvex with a fire extinguisher while his apartment building evacuated. The woman next to him? She was 9 when the attack happened. Killed 2 of them with a kitchen knife. I felt dizzy. This is madness. This is humanity, Marcus corrected. Look, I get it. You come from a species that is smart, strategic, sensible. When faced with superior force, you calculate odds and make rational decisions. We do too, mostly. But there is this line, right? This point where rational goes out the window and something else kicks in. We call it different things. Protective instinct. Mama bear mode. That moment when you decide your survival is less important than making sure the monster does not get past you to someone you love. He took another massive bite. The Harvex did not understand that. They thought terror was a weapon. Did not realize it could also be fuel. But the casualties, I protested. 80 million dead? Would have been 8 billion if we had run, Marcus said flatly. That is what the Council's evacuation protocols would have given us. Time to watch our planet die from a safe distance. Instead, we fought. Lot of us died, but lot of us lived. And we learned. Next time something like the Harvex shows up, we will be ready. Better weapons, better tactics. But same principle. You do not get to hunt humans without learning we hunt back. The casual certainty in his voice was terrifying. That evening, I attended office hours with Professor Hendricks, ostensibly to discuss assignment parameters, but really to ask the questions burning through my neural pathways. "Ah, Krell," he greeted me warmly. "I wondered if you would stop by. Emma's story got to you, did it not?" "It contradicts everything I know about proper threat response," I admitted. "About survival protocols and rational risk assessment." Hendricks leaned back in his chair, considering. "Tell me, Krell, what does your species do when faced with insurmountable odds?" "We calculate probability of success. If below acceptable threshold, we retreat, regroup, attempt alternative approaches." "Sensible," Hendricks agreed. "That is how most species operate. That is why most species, when they encountered the Harvex, died efficiently and rationally. They saw the odds, understood the math, and made logical decisions that led to their extinction." He pulled up files on his desk display. "Humans are different. We are capable of rational thought, obviously, but we are also capable of looking at impossible odds and saying, 'I do not care.' We can convince ourselves that protecting one person, saving one child, holding one street matters more than our individual survival. And sometimes, weirdly, that irrational response creates outcomes the rational calculations never predicted. Like 14-year-olds killing Harvex with baseball bats. Like 14-year-olds killing Harvex with baseball bats, he confirmed. Emma's not unique, Krell. She's just more visible. I have 300 students in my classes. Know how many survived the Harvex attacks? 47. Every single one has scars. Physical, mental, both. Every single one fought. Some with weapons, some with their bare hands. One incredibly stubborn individual used a vacuum cleaner. Do not ask me how. The point is, they fought when fighting was irrational. And humanity survived. At terrible cost. At terrible cost, Hendricks agreed solemnly. We are not proud of the casualties. Every death weighs on us. But we are proud that we fought, that we stood our ground, that we showed the universe humans do not go quietly into extinction. I absorbed this, my worldview shifting uncomfortably. Professor, do you think they will come back? The Harvex? His expression hardened. Yes, they are predators. They do not abandon hunting grounds without reason. Right now, they are somewhere out there, analyzing what went wrong, adapting their strategies, and eventually, they will test us again. And when they do? When they do, Hendricks said with grim satisfaction, they will find humans have been adapting too. We have been studying, preparing, building defenses and training soldiers, and making sure that next time we are not just civilians with improvised weapons. Next time we will be ready. Emma and students like her are making sure of that. He gestured to the darkening campus outside his window. Every person here has their reasons for studying xenobiology. Most want to understand alien life. Emma wants to understand alien death. How to cause it efficiently, effectively, with extreme prejudice if necessary. She sat in my class today with one arm, covered in scars, and calmly discussed the biology of creatures that tried to exterminate her species. Know what that is, Krell? Madness? I suggested weakly. Preparation, Hendricks corrected. That is what scares species like yours about species like mine. You see our vulnerabilities, our soft bodies, our short lives, our emotional volatility. What you do not see until too late is that vulnerability makes us dangerous. We know we can die. We have always known. And we decided long ago that if death is inevitable, we might as well make it count. We will protect our families, defend our homes, fight our monsters. And if we die doing it? He shrugged. At least we die on our feet. I left his office with more questions than answers. My understanding of humanity fundamentally altered. The next morning, I arrived early to class, hoping to observe Emma Torres further, to understand this peculiar human who studied the monsters from her nightmares. She was already there, of course, reading from a thick textbook about Harbeck's neurological structures. She glanced up as I entered, that slight smile appearing. "Morning, Krell. Sleep well?" "Not particularly," I admitted. "I kept thinking about what you said, about being ready." "Good," she said simply. "You should think about it. Your people should think about it. The Harvecks are not the only predators out there. The galaxy is full of species that see others as prey, as resources, as obstacles to remove. Most civilized species rely on councils and diplomacy and rules that predators do not follow. Humans? We learned the hard way that sometimes rules are not enough. Sometimes you need teeth." She tapped her textbook. "This chapter discusses Harbeck's pack hunting strategies. Want to know what is fascinating? They are efficient, brutal, but predictable. They rely on terror and overwhelming force. When that does not work, when prey fights back hard enough, they falter. Their psychology is not built for prolonged resistance. They are ambush predators, not siege specialists. And humans?" Her smile widened, showing teeth. "Humans are persistence predators, Krell. We chase things until they collapse from exhaustion. We fight losing battles until they stop being losing. We are irrational, stubborn, and we absolutely refuse to quit when quitting would be smart. The Harvecks thought they were the ultimate predators. They learned differently. Question is, who else out there needs to learn the same lesson?" The classroom began filling with other students. Normal university life resuming. But I understood now that nothing about this place was normal. This was not just education. This was preparation for war. Every student here carried scars, visible or not. Every lesson was about understanding enemies. Every day was training. Humanity had fought monsters at dawn and survived. Now they were making sure they would win. And as I took my seat, watching Emma Torres calmly discuss death and survival, I realized something that chilled my sensory stalks. The galaxy worried about the Harvecks returning, about what would happen when predators evolved and adapted and came back stronger. But maybe the galaxy should be more concerned about what humanity was becoming while they waited. After all, Emma Torres was not recovering from trauma. She was weaponizing it. Class started. Professor Hendricks began discussing Harbeck's communication patterns. Emma took notes with fierce concentration. And I sat there, a visitor from Theta Centauri, wondering what I would tell my people when I returned home. That humanity was friendly? True. That they were welcoming? Also true. That they were safe? I looked at Emma's scars, remembered the casualness with which she described fighting creatures that had destroyed 12 civilizations, noted the way every human in this room carried themselves with quiet readiness, like weapons waiting to be drawn. Safe was not the word. Terrifyingly determined. Absolutely relentless. willing to fight monsters with whatever came to hand, and stubbornly refusing to die when death was the logical outcome. That was humanity. And somewhere out there, the Harvecks were learning to regret discovering that fact. Class ended. Students filed out. Emma gathered her materials, nodded politely to me, and left, limping slightly, but moving with purpose. I remained seated, my datapad forgotten, my report to the council half-formed in my processing centers. How did you explain this? How did you tell advanced rational species that the soft, fragile humans were perhaps the most dangerous thing in the galaxy precisely because they should not be? Marcus paused on his way out. You coming, Krell? In a moment, I managed. Still processing. He laughed, understanding in his eyes. Yeah, Emma has that effect. Word of advice? Do not underestimate any of us. We look harmless until we are not. That is kind of our thing. He left. I sat alone in the empty lecture hall, surrounded by ghosts of lessons learned in blood and survival. Outside, humans walked to their next classes, laughing and talking and living normal lives. But underneath that normalcy was steel, was readiness, was the absolute certainty that if monsters came again, humans would be waiting, with baseball bats and family dogs and sheer stubborn refusal to quit. And heaven help whatever came hunting, because humanity had learned to hunt back. 3 weeks passed. I attended every lecture, took copious notes, and tried desperately to reconcile the cheerful, coffee-addicted students around me with the warriors they apparently became when threatened. Emma Torres remained my primary subject of fascination and, if I was honest, growing concern. She was always early, always prepared, and always watching. You stare a lot, she said one morning, catching me off guard. Class had not started yet, and I thought I had been subtle. Clearly not. Apologies, I stammered. I'm simply trying to understand. Understand what? She set down her coffee, giving me her full attention. That was another thing about Emma. When she focused on you, it felt like being caught in a targeting system. How you function, I admitted. The trauma you experienced would incapacitate most sentient beings for years, decades even. Yet you attend classes, participate in study groups, and yesterday I saw you laughing with friends about some human comedy program. The psychological compartmentalization required. You think I compartmentalize? Emma's laugh was sharp. Krell, I do not lock the memories away. I carry them. Every day, every hour. I remember Soup's weight when I had to bury him. Remember my mom's face when she realized I was serious about fighting. Remember the sound my arm made when it came off. I flinched. She did not. But here is what you are missing, she continued. Remembering does not mean stopping. The Harvecks wanted us dead, wanted our planet empty, so they could strip it for resources. Best revenge I can think of? Living, learning, getting so good at understanding them that next time we do not lose 80 million people. We lose 0. Next time, I repeated. You speak of it as certainty. Because it is. She pulled out her datapad, swiping through files. See this? Harveck's ship movements in the outer rim. They are probing defenses, testing response times. This here reports from Kepler Station about spore pod fragments found in asteroid fields. They are not gone, Krell. They are planning. And while they plan, I study. Fair trade, I think. Marcus arrived, dropping into the seat beside me with his usual lack of grace. Morning. Oh, good. Are we doing the thing where Emma terrifies Krell before breakfast? Love this game. I am not terrified, I protested. I am academically concerned. Sure you are, Marcus grinned. Hey, Emma, tell him about the simulation yesterday. The one where you beat Professor Chen's impossible scenario. Emma actually looked embarrassed. It was not impossible, just improbable. She is being modest, Marcus informed me. Chen designed a tactical scenario where a Harvex strike force ambushes a civilian transport. No weapons, limited resources, crew of 20 against 100 Harvex. Every military expert who ran it got a 90% casualty rate. Emma got everyone out alive. How? I asked, genuinely curious. Vented half the cargo bay to space, Emma said simply. Harvex can survive vacuum for short periods, but they hate it. Slows them down, messes with their coordination, used the confusion to seal them in sections of the ship, then jettisoned those sections. No casualties except the bad guys and some freight we were hauling. You froze them to death in space. I removed the threat using available resources, Emma corrected. Chen said it was creative problem-solving. I said it was obvious. Why fight when you can engineer? Professor Hendricks arrived, saving me from responding. Class began, focusing on Harvex reproductive cycles and how to disrupt them. The casual discussion of species-level biological warfare was deeply unsettling. Around me, students took notes like this was normal curriculum, which I supposed it now was. Halfway through the lecture, alarms blared. Not fire alarms. These were deeper, more urgent, the kind of sound that makes prey species freeze and predators hunt. Every human in the room went absolutely still, heads turning toward Hendricks. Lockdown protocol, he said calmly, too calmly. Everyone stay seated. This is likely a drill, but we follow procedures. Except Emma was already moving. She grabbed her bag, pulled out something that made my sensory stalks retract in shock. A weapon, an actual plasma pistol, compact but unmistakably military grade. Emma, Hendricks said warningly. You heard the alarm pattern, Professor. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. That is not a drill. Her voice had changed. Gone was the student. This was the warrior who fought monsters. That is an active hostile contact alert. Marcus swore. Other students were checking their own bags, and I realized with dawning horror that many of them were armed. Concealed weapons on a university campus. The implications were staggering. Could be a false alarm, Hendricks said, but he was moving to his desk, pulling out his own sidearm. System glitches happen. System glitches do not make that pattern, Emma countered. She moved to the window, staying to the side, scanning the campus below. Professor, I need you to be straight with me. Is this what I think it is? Before Hendricks could answer, the building shook. Not earthquake shaking. This was impact tremor. Something large hitting something solid. The lights flickered, backup systems engaging with seamless efficiency. Okay, Emma said, her voice cutting through the rising panic. Everyone listen up. Standard defensive protocols. Those with combat training, you are with me. Everyone else, you get to the reinforced shelters in the basement. Move smart, move quiet. And if you see something that is not human, you run first, and ask questions never. Clear? The terrifying part was how quickly everyone obeyed. No arguments, no debates. Students split into 2 groups with practiced efficiency. The larger group headed for the exits, moving quickly but not running. The smaller group, maybe 15 students including Marcus, gathered around Emma. Weapons check, she ordered. Ammo status, charge levels, backup plans. Krell, you armed? I am a researcher, I protested. I do not carry weapons. Fantastic. You are officially a VIP, which means you stick with Marcus. He keeps you alive. You stay out of the way. Deal? I do not understand what is happening. The building shook again, harder this time. Closer. Through the window, I saw smoke rising from the science building across the quad. And movement. Fast, chitinous, unmistakable movement. Harvex, Marcus said quietly. They actually came back. Emma's expression went flat, that terrible calm I had seen before. Revised assessment. This is not a probe. This is an assault. They are hitting the university specifically, which means they know about the xenobiology program. They know we are studying them. How many? Asked a student whose name I could not remember. A tall woman with cybernetic arms. Does not matter, Emma said. We hold this building until military response arrives. Every minute we buy is civilians evacuating. Every Harvex we stop here is one not hunting in residential areas. Questions? No one spoke. These children, because that is what they were, barely adults, were preparing to fight creatures that had nearly exterminated their species, and they were doing it with the same casual readiness they brought to midterm exams. Good, Emma continued. Teams of 3, cover all entrances. Anyone without ranged weapons, you are on barricade duty. Use desks, filing cabinets, anything heavy. Make them work for every meter. Krell, you still here? I realized I had been frozen, my neural processes locked in recursive terror loops. Yes, I am here. Then get moving. Marcus, get him to safety. Rest of you, let us remind these things why attacking Earth was their worst mistake. The next 30 minutes existed in a state of surreal horror. Marcus hauled me through corridors that transformed before my eyes. Students I had shared cafeteria conversations with were now soldiers, moving with frightening competence. Furniture became barricades. Laboratories became armories. The friendly educational institution revealed itself as a fortress that had simply been pretending otherwise. We reached what Marcus called a hardpoint, a reinforced classroom with limited access points and good sight lines. Other non-combatants were already there, maybe 40 people, including several professors. They looked terrified, but determined. Status? Demanded Professor Chen, the tactical instructor Marcus had mentioned. She had a nasty scar across her face and was checking a rifle that looked far too familiar with her hands. Emma's organizing primary defense, Marcus reported. Harvex confirmed. Unknown numbers. Building is in lockdown. Good. We hold here, protect the civilians, and wait for the cavalry. Chen noticed me. Krell, right? The observer? Hell of a day for observation. This is insane, I managed. You are students. This building is a school. You should be evacuating, not fighting. Evacuating to where? Chen asked reasonably. They hit the campus first, which means they are between us and the shelters. We run, we die tired. We fight. Maybe we live. Simple math. Simple. Nothing about this was simple. Through the reinforced windows, I could see the quad. And them, the Harvex, dozens of them, moving with that horrible fluid grace. Bigger than the hollows suggested. Faster. More real. Gunfire erupted. Not the scattered shots of panic, but controlled bursts, disciplined fire. Emma's defensive teams engaging. I heard her voice over the building's intercom system, calm and clear. Contact at entrance 3. They are testing our defenses. Let them think we are softer than we are. Fall back to secondary positions, make them chase. She is using herself as bait, Marcus explained, seeing my confusion. Standard Emma tactics. Make the enemy commit, then spring the trap. An explosion rocked the building. Not outside. Inside. Deliberate, strategic. That was the chemistry lab, Chen said with grim satisfaction. Emma must have rigged it. If Harvex pushed that corridor, they just learned about human explosive compounds. More gunfire, screaming, some of it human, some of it that wet glass-breaking sound the Harvex made when injured. The battle was close, immediate, terrifying. And through it all, Emma's voice continued providing updates, directing fire, keeping her people organized. This was what Hendricks meant about preparation. This was not panic. This was rehearsed, practiced. These students had trained for this scenario probably dozens of times. The university was not just an educational facility, it was a garrison disguised as academia. Krell, Marcus said, his voice tight. I need you to understand something. When this is over, assuming we survive, you cannot tell the Council about our defensive preparations. You cannot reveal that human schools are basically military installations. You understand why, right? Because it would be seen as militarization, I said slowly, as humanity preparing for war rather than peace. No, Marcus corrected, because it would reveal that we never stopped being at war. The Harvex proved that peace is a luxury predators do not allow. Every human alive knows this now. We smile and trade and participate in galactic society, but underneath, we are always ready, always watching, always prepared to fight. That is terrifying. That is survival. He checked his weapon, a movement so practiced it was unconscious. The galaxy wants to believe the Harvex were an anomaly, a one-time threat. We know better. We know there are worse things out there, and we know that when they come, no one will save us. We save ourselves, so we prepare. We train. We turn our children into warriors, while they are still learning calculus. Because the alternative is extinction. The intercom crackled. Emma's voice, strained now but still controlled. Heavy concentration at entrance 1. They are adapting faster than expected. Need support at static. Then nothing. Emma? Marcus called into his comm unit. Emma, report. Silence. Chen swore. She is either dead or cut off. Either way, we need to assume primary defense has failed. Prepare for close quarters combat. Everyone who can hold a weapon, you are now active combatants. Everyone else, stay low and pray the military response is faster than estimated. This could not be happening. I was a researcher, an observer. I studied human educational systems, not combat scenarios. Yet here I was, crouched behind furniture that would not stop a Harvex for more than seconds, watching humans prepare to die fighting. The doors buckled, heavy impacts from outside, rhythmic and determined. The Harvex were coming. Steady, Chen ordered. Fire on my mark. Aim for joints and eyes. Make every shot count. The doors exploded inward. Chitinous forms poured through, moving with nightmare speed. Chen's defenders opened fire, controlled bursts that dropped the first wave. But more came. Always more. I saw Marcus move, positioning himself between me and the threat. His weapon barking controlled shots. Saw students barely old enough to drink alcohol fighting with the precision of veteran soldiers. Saw professors who should have been grading papers instead coordinating defensive fire patterns. and I saw them dying. A Harvex broke through the left barricade, its claws flashing. 2 students went down, their screams cut short. Chen shifted fire, took the creature in what passed for its skull. But 3 more were already pushing through the gap. "Fall back," Chen ordered. "Secondary positions." We retreated, fighting every step. The Harvex pressed forward, relentless. This was how civilizations died. Overwhelmed by superior predators, fighting bravely but ultimately losing to simple mathematics. More of them than us. Stronger, faster, better armed. Except the floor beneath the advancing Harvex exploded. Not from below, from charges embedded in the structure itself. The creatures fell, chittering in shock, into a pit that had not existed moments before. And in that pit, moving with precise brutality, was Emma Torres. She was covered in purple ichor, her remaining arm wielding what looked like a vibroblade taken from a fallen Harvex. Her face was a mask of controlled fury, and as I watched, she methodically killed every creature in that pit with surgical efficiency. "Told you," she called up, breathing hard. "Make them chase. Lead them where you want them. Then finish it." She climbed out, accepted a hand up from Marcus, and surveyed the carnage with professional detachment. "Status? 12 wounded, 4 dead," Chen reported. "Defensive line held, but barely. We cannot sustain another push. Like that. We will not have to," Emma said, tilting her head. "Listen." Over the ringing in my auditory sensors, I heard it. The deep thrumming of military gunships. The precise thunder of orbital strikes hitting targets with guided accuracy. And something else. A sound that made the remaining Harvex hesitate. Human voices. Hundreds of them. Not screaming. Singing. "Dawn Patrol," Marcus breathed. They mobilized the militia. Through the shattered windows, I saw them, civilians with weapons, moving in organized formations, supported by military units. The scattered defensive action was becoming a coordinated counter-assault. And the Harvex, accustomed to causing terror, were experiencing it. They retreated. Not routed, these were still apex predators, but definitely withdrawing. The cost of this hunt had exceeded expectations. Earth was biting back, hard. Emma watched them go, her expression unreadable. "Chen, organize triage. Get the wounded stabilized. Marcus, secure the perimeter. Everyone else, defensive positions until we get all clear." This might be a feint. But it was not a feint. Over the next hour, reports filtered in. The Harvex assault had hit 12 locations simultaneously. Universities, research facilities, places where humanity studied them. A decapitation strike meant to eliminate future threats. Instead, they had learned that every human institution was a potential fortress. Every student, a potential soldier. Final casualty count across all sites. 317 humans dead. 800 wounded. Harvex casualties. Estimated 2,000. Complete tactical failure. Retreat confirmed. I found Emma on the roof as sunset painted the sky in colors that reminded me uncomfortably of blood. She was sitting on the edge, legs dangling, staring at the city below, where fires were being extinguished and bodies were being counted. "You should not be up here alone," I said carefully. "Not alone. You are here." She did not look at me. "Come to process the trauma? Take notes for your report?" "I came to apologize." That got her attention. She turned, one eyebrow raised. "For what?" "For not understanding. For seeing your scars and thinking they made you broken. for treating humanity's preparedness as paranoia rather than necessity, for being another species that needed humans to bleed before believing they could fight. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Krell, do you know what the worst part of today was? Not the fighting, not even the dying. It was knowing we will have to do this again and again, because predators like the Harvex do not quit. They adapt. They will come back with different tactics, better strategies, and we will bleed again. My scars will have company. More students will learn to kill before they learn to live, and the galaxy will keep treating us like fragile primitives who got lucky. What would you have us see instead? The truth, she said simply. That humanity survived not because we are strong, but because we refuse to quit. That our weakness is our weapon, because it forces us to be clever, vicious, and absolutely relentless. That you should not fear what we are. You should fear what we are becoming. She stood, stretching her single arm. I killed 12 Harvex today, Krell. 12. I am 20 years old, missing an arm, still have nightmares about soup dying, and I killed 12 of the deadliest predators the galaxy has ever produced. And I am not special. I am not even exceptional by human standards. I am just someone who learned early that monsters are real, and fighting them is the only option. What will you do now? I asked. After this? Same thing I did before. Study, learn, prepare. Because next time, I want 0 casualties. I want every human who faces the Harvex to know exactly how to kill them efficiently and go home alive. That is my goal, Krell. Not victory, survival for everyone. She walked toward the roof access, pausing at the door. Your report to the council. What will you tell them? I considered carefully. The truth. That humanity is dangerous. That your educational facilities are military installations. That your students are warriors. That attacking Earth is suicide with extra steps. And will they believe you? Probably not, I admitted. Most species cannot comprehend functioning under constant threat readiness. It seems paranoid, unsustainable. And yet we sustain it. Emma smiled that terrible smile. Tell them anyway. Maybe save some species the trouble of learning the hard way. Humans are friendly until we are not. We are peaceful until peace is not an option. And we are absolutely, relentlessly, horrifyingly effective at killing things that try to kill us first. She left. I remained on the roof, watching the city repair itself with frightening efficiency. Emergency services, civilian volunteers, military support, all working in seamless coordination. This was not new to them. This was practiced. My report to the council would be thorough, detailed, honest. I would describe Emma Torres fighting monsters at dawn with a baseball bat and soup. Describe her fighting them again at 20, with tactical precision and cold fury. Describe a species that turned trauma into training, fear into focus, and near extinction into preparation for round 2. Would the council believe me? Probably not. They would see the statistics. Humans lost 80 million in the first Harvex attack, 300 in this one. They would call it improvement, but still vulnerability. They would not understand that those numbers represented humanity learning, adapting, becoming more efficient at survival. They would not see what I saw, a species that would rather die fighting than live fleeing. That would turn schools into fortresses and students into soldiers because extinction was not acceptable. that would study their nightmares in order to kill them better next time. The Harveks had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humanity, expecting prey, and found predators instead. Now, 6 years later, they had returned expecting weakened survivors and found an entire species that had spent every day since preparing for this exact moment. And humanity had won, not easily, not cleanly, but definitively. The question was not whether the Harveks would return again. Emma was right. Predators do not quit. The question was whether they would survive the encounter, because humanity was not just preparing to fight. They were preparing to hunt. I filed my report 3 days later. Included everything: the scars, the weapons, the casual readiness for violence, the songs civilians sang while marching to battle. Included Emma's story, Marcus's certainty, Chen's professional brutality. Painted a picture of humanity that would disturb comfortable council members. The response came quickly. Concerns about militarization. Questions about whether humanity posed a threat to galactic peace. Suggestions that perhaps Earth's aggressive preparation warranted observation, restriction, containment. I submitted a second report, a single sentence. If you try to contain humanity, you will learn firsthand why the Harveks failed. There was no response to that. The council went quiet, presumably debating whether friendly, coffee-addicted students who fought monsters before breakfast were compatible with their vision of galactic civilization. I returned to my studies, attended more classes with Emma, watched her graduate with honors, accepting her degree with one hand while her scars caught the auditorium lights, watched her immediately enroll in graduate programs focused on xenobiological warfare and threat assessment. Planning to make a career of this? I asked at her graduation party. Already have, she replied, sipping something humans called champagne. Military consulting, civilian defense training, threat analysis. Someone has to make sure next time goes even better. Might as well be someone who knows what it costs. Better meaning fewer casualties? Better meaning none, she corrected. 0 human deaths. That is my target. Unrealistic? Maybe. But I fought Harveks when I was 14 with a baseball bat. Unrealistic is kind of my specialty. She raised her glass in a toast. To survival, Krell. To learning from our monsters. And to making sure the galaxy understands that humanity does not need to be strong. We just need to be too stubborn to quit. I raised my own glass, filled with something that probably violated several Centaurian dietary restrictions. To humanity, the species that scared predators by refusing to be prey. Emma laughed, genuine and bright. I like that. Mind if I use it? Thinking about writing a book. Fighting Monsters at Dawn. A Human Approach to Existential Threat Management. Catchy title. I thought so. Her smile faded slightly. Krell, seriously, when you go home, make sure your people understand. We do not want war. We do not want conflict. But we will absolutely, without hesitation, fight anything that threatens us. And we will win. Not because we are special, because we refuse any other option. Years later, I would think about that conversation. About Emma Torres, missing an arm and covered in scars, calmly sipping champagne while planning humanity's next defensive strategies. About a species that turned educational facilities into fortresses and children into warriors, and somehow maintained that this was normal, necessary, acceptable. The Harveks never returned to Earth. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps somewhere in their collective intelligence, they calculated the odds and recognized the truth. Humanity was no longer prey. They were the thing predators checked for before hunting. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and responded with baseball bats and family dogs and absolute refusal to quit. They were survivors who had weaponized their trauma and turned scars into lessons. And maybe, just maybe, that made them the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Not because they were strong, but because they were human. And humans, as I learned watching Emma Torres fight monsters at dawn and then calmly attend class afterward, simply do not know how to quit. The classroom had frozen when she walked in that first day. Now I understood why. It was not fear. It was recognition. Every human in that room saw their own scars reflected in hers. Their own determination. Their own absolute certainty that next time they would be ready. And heaven help whatever came hunting, because humanity was learning to hunt back.